So you need out your unit, your obviosities packet, because we're going to go over that first. So we'll do the unit circle observation summary conclusion. We'll make sure that we have everything filled out that you would like, and all that fun stuff. And all that good stuff. Okay? Then, second half of, or I shouldn't say, more like the second third of the class, I'll talk about unit circle projects and when those are due and how we go about figuring that stuff out and all that fun stuff. And then I have another worksheet for you to complete. So that you have 2 worksheets that you have completed or be working on, I should say, to go down. Okay? There has been questions the last couple of days about when we're going to take a test on this section. I don't know. Okay, I will be flat honest. We don't know what day the test is going to be. We do know that it will be after Thanksgiving break, but we don't know when it will be. If it'll be, I doubt we'll have it the Tuesday after Thanksgiving break because that's just me. Okay, and so, but it might be a Thursday of that week. We might get off of Tuesday and test on a Thursday, something like that. So I don't know. We're still working on the timing of all of that. Okay. So in your obviosities packet, we talked about the unit circle, or we discussed things on the unit circle. Okay. You should have the front side filled in by now. Okay, it should be done. If you haven't finished it, I'm not gonna wait for you to fill stuff in today on this slide. I'm just making sure that you have everything filled in to where you need it to be filled in on. So we have our unit circle. Okay. Couple of observations. In number 1, we should have observed that the sine values and the cosine values never get bigger than 1 and never get smaller than -1. So both sine and cosine are in between -1 and +1. We never go outside those values for that, because then we would be off the unit circle. Okay? So that was observation number 1, the front side of the actual packet. So number 1, you should have observed that we were in between -1 and +1. Then in number 2, you got introduced to the hammer. Okay? The hammer is the equation of said unit circle is x squared plus y squared equals 1. Well, we then said that x was cosine, y is sine, so that means that x squared then would be cosine squared, y squared would be sine squared. So you were introduced then to the hammer of cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. Okay? Then third thing, what was the third thing? Was that the positivities of the sines and the cosines, or is that number 4? Positivities, okay? So then you should have learned that on the unit circle, sine, I always go sine first, I don't know why. Cosine is positive on the right half of the unit circle, which would be quadrant number 1 and quadrant number 4. Sine is positive on the top half of the unit circle, which would be quadrant number 1 and quadrant number 2. And tangent's the goofy one. Tangent's positive on the main diagonal of the unit circle, which would be quadrant number 1 and quadrant number 3. Okay? And then those are, the negatives are in the other ones. Okay? So left half of the unit circle would be where cosine is negative. Bottom half would be where sine is negative. Quadrant 2, quadrant 4 would be where tangent. Okay? Then in number 4, you learned all about going around the circle more than once. Okay? We like to call when you have just the flat out unit circle, we call that first lap around the unit circle. Okay? So we like to have all of these angles, all of these trig values, etc., are all first lap values. Okay? But in life, there's angles that aren't in between 0 and 2 pi. Okay? So those are outside the first lap. And what you were supposed to observe in number 4, and remember which number we were on, in number 4 is if I'm at that point right there on the unit circle, and I go a whole nother round, if I go 2 pi, if I add 2 pi to it, or if I subtract 2 pi, I'm at the exact same spot. Because it takes 2 pi to go all the way around 1. Same with 4 pi. That just means I went around 2 extra times. 6 pi went around 3 extra times. 50 pi went around 25 extra times. Okay? As long as I'm adding and subtracting an even pi, I should be at the exact same spot, which means that the sine values are the same and the cosine values are the same. Okay? And then you utilize that in number 4. You utilize that to figure out when we have angles bigger than 2 pi, or big negatives, or things like that, that we can get back to that positive first lap of the unit circle by adding 2 pi, or 4 pi, or 6 pi. Okay? Or keep adding 2 pi until you get back to it. Okay? Or until you get back to on that first lap. Okay? Then, in number 5, we only went halfway around the circle. We added pi, or we subtracted pi to them. And you should have observed there that the cosine value is opposite. The sine value is opposite, but the tangent value is the same. If you go through the center 180 degrees, pi radians to the other side of the circle. Sine and cosine are opposite, tangent is the same. Okay? And then the last one that we had was if we went the total opposite direction. So if we go the negative direction, go back here to mine. So now if I put my point, we'll put my point right there. So this would be going in the positive direction. This would be going in the negative direction. And if you notice, I end up vertically at the same spot, which means that on my, I go through the same x value. So my cosine, because cosine is x, my cosine is the same if I'm going in the positive direction or if I'm going in the negative direction. The difference is the sign. The sign is the same value, just one is positive, one is negative. So those are opposite sign values. And tangent would also be opposite, because you're inverting or you're opposite or negatizing one of the sine or the cosine, not both. Okay? Any questions on the obviosities? The obvious things that you need as a necessity. That's why we call it obviosities. All right. Okay. Unfortunately, for those joining us online, speaking to the video now, okay, this is where the video will end today. But see your teacher if you have any more questions, especially about the unit circle class.